Williams, who's an attorney with Barrett Williams and Greer, LLP.
Yes, I'm on this panel. You see, the thing says a Utah Compact from a Mormon perspective. And it doesn't say the Mormon perspective. It says a Mormon. I happen to be a Mormon. I've been a Mormon all my life. My ancestors were run out of the United States, out of Missouri. They were run out of Nauvoo, Illinois. They walked across the plains with Brigham Young. They settled many places in Arizona and Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming, all my ancestors. So I am a longtime Mormon. I am somewhat of an unusual thing for the Mormon Church, however, because I tend to think a little more deeply about things. You see, I went to law school. And law school, in some respects, my dad hated lawyers, by the way. I couldn't believe he had a son who became one. But lawyers tend to enable themselves with their education to look at things a little more broadly, perhaps, and focus a little more deeply on what the issues are. I am not the least bit surprised that the Mormon Church put its force and weight and support behind the Utah Compact. But I'm also not the least bit surprised that many Mormons who consider themselves quite traditional are big supporters of SB 1070 and are shocked when they find out that I thought it was bad then, bad now, and any type of law like that ought to be bad because, you see, Mormons believe in law and order and supporting the law and the Constitution, and they don't recognize that. Mormons don't believe in supporting, now this is Williams 1 and 5, if you want to get out your scriptures right here. You're not going to find this on the church's website. And I want to disclaim again that I'm speaking for the church. I just happen to be a Mormon who's been a Mormon a long time. Williams 1 and 5 says we only support good laws. I mean, for heaven's sakes, who would support the laws of eugenics in Germany in the 1930s? You got to support that because that's a law? No. I think when Rosa Parks didn't sit at the back of the bus and she was attacked for that, was that a good law? No, you know, time and perspective heals that. You know, when Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense in December of 1775, he published it in 1776 anonymously because he knew it was traitorous and illegal to be against King George. But he did it anyway, and that incendiary pamphlet resulted more than anything else in the Revolutionary War, which was itself traitorous and illegal. Bad or good? And so I think we as individual citizens need to hold up the magnifying glass that enables us to perceive whether something is good or bad. Now, I carry around this little book that has two documents in it, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. I'm going to read a very short thing here. Addressing a candid world, the founders' immediate aim in the Declaration was to justify their decision to declare independence. Toward that end, they set forth a theory of legitimate government that demonstrated how far British rule had strayed from that ideal. Appealing to all mankind, the Declaration's seminal passage opens with perhaps the most important line in the document. We hold these truths to be self-evident, grounded in a reason that self-evident truths at the time and even today invoke the long tradition of natural law that holds that there is a higher law of right and wrong from which to derive human law and against which to criticize the law at any time. It is not political will, then, but moral reasoning accessible to all that is the foundation of our political system. Some years ago, I was flying my airplane. Someone had been very sick, and I had to go up to Calgary, Canada, because they'd had a stroke and were in the hospital up there, and they were very concerned with the medical system there. Being an American citizen without enrollment in their medical program, they would die in the hospital in Calgary. So I got my plane. I flew up to Calgary and loaded this person into my plane with his wife and his 4 kids. We flew across the border of Canada into the United States, and I flew across a lake that I could tell exactly and precisely was on the border. It transected the border between Canada and the United States because I could see it on my GPS. And there were fishing boats, and they would drive over to this side of the lake, and then they'd go back over that side of the lake, and I thought, I wonder how they enforce when they're crossing over into the United States there. And about 2 weeks later, I have clients in Mexico City, and so I flew my plane down to Toluca. You cannot land your plane in Mexico City if it's a private aircraft because it's kind of small and busy. And so Toluca, which is in El Estado de Mexico, not DF, not the capital city. I landed there, came back, and of course, going down and coming back, I'm looking down and thinking, my gosh, we're spending billions of dollars down there for this fence. And I happened to be in church a few weeks later, and I asked the rhetorical question, do we think God cares about a fence? And I was attacked. But now you got to understand, I'm on the high council of the church. And so I go around and I speak at various congregations by assignment. And usually I limit my remarks to something that's very much pablum. Not being particularly opinionated myself, you see. I happened to let these words come out of my mouth, and somebody came up and suggested I ought to be excommunicated.
Oh my God. Wow.
And I suggested they ought to think about it more. Make no mistake, the Utah Compact would not have been passed in Utah without the support of the Mormon Church. 80% of the legislature in Utah is LDS, and without the church being there and saying this is a good thing, it would not have passed. In fact, at the signing of this bill, the presiding bishop of the Mormon Church appeared, and he was there and issued a statement. Now, there are 2 newspapers in Salt Lake City. One is the heathen paper called the Salt Lake Tribune. The other newspaper in Salt Lake City is the good newspaper owned by the LDS Church called the Deseret News. Now, which of those 2 newspapers do you suppose carried the article of the presiding bishop appearing at the signing? Not the Deseret News. The Salt Lake Tribune, and the religion editor of the Salt Lake Tribune is a good friend of mine. And I called her up and I said, boy, that's going to be interesting. And within a week or 2, there were something like 2,000 comments on blogs. And I read a few of them and realized the people who write blogs on the internet have nothing else to do in life. And their comments, like the news media, I'm sorry, are about 1/4 of an inch deep. They never get into the substance of it, and most people, when they think about topics, likewise think and consider them about 1/4 of an inch deep. And they don't go into the real economic, moral, political, governmental, liberty, freedom issues that are involved. And so I say to my brother, I have a brother, he's, oh, by the way, I am right of the Sutherland Institute. I am so conservative and so far right, I'm right of Genghis Khan. And so people are startled when I say this isn't a political issue. This is an issue of liberty and freedom, and whether we want people coming here who are going to add to the vitality of our country, who are going to increase the economic pie. I am an economist. And whether they're going to promote what has always made this country great. You see, we're a mixing pot, and the stew of immigrants has always been well seasoned by more people coming here. And so when my brother asked me to join the Minutemen and take my gun and go down the border and shoot people coming across, I said, well, let me think about that. And so I wrote an essay. It's 30 pages long, single-spaced, footnotes. You can read it on the internet. Just put in Daryl Williams immigration on Google and it'll come up and you can read my essay. Because I don't think that this is a political issue. I think it is a moral issue. And I applaud my church for what it has done. Now, how do I know what my church has done? Here's a couple of websites you can go look at. LDS.org. That's Latter-day Saints. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. LDS.org. Or if you want to see the news releases, you go to newsroom.lds.org.
Mr. Williams, can I ask you to begin to wrap up?
No.
Can I mandate that you start?
Okay.
Can I mandate that?
Okay.
All right. So there's a
Okay.
third panelist that's coming in through Skype, so the next 30 seconds, could you?
You get more important? Oh, okay. So what I think this is not a political issue. It's an issue of education, helping people understand the issues. And what I don't like about this group is that I suspect that you're more sympathetic to what should be the position than I want you to be. Because I want to be in front of people who don't agree with me so I can convince them. And believe you me, if you get me in a room with 10 people who are opposed violently to what I think, in 30 minutes, they'll leave wondering if they are right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Appreciate that.